I, yes, mostly grew up in the US, but I also a little bit grew up in Saudi Arabia until I was 11. Uh, yeah, both my parents are American, but I went to a British international school in Saudi Arabia, and so I've always had a kind of different perspective of the US.
Hello, 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 and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are watching or listening from. Let us know, actually, where are you in the world at the moment? I'm here based in Brussels, in Belgium, and it is a lovely, lovely sunny day, which is surprising because it's been grey for the last week or so it's nice to wake up and see that the sun is shining, finally. And as you will see today, I have another amazing guest, and we're going to have a chat for 40 minutes, give or take. So, without further ado, Alex, hello, welcome.
Hello, thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So, for anyone who doesn't recognize you or know you, could you do us a favor and introduce yourself?
Of course. Yes, so I'm Alex Smith. I am the founder of, well, a co-founder of Peasy Anglais. Most people know me because I am the main face of Peasy Anglais, and but actually we're a school of quite a few different people working for the same mission of helping French speakers gain confidence in English. So lots of social media content, and then we have courses online as well.
Excellent. Well, we'll speak a lot about Peasy Anglais, but first, why French? Why did you start studying French in the first place?
Yeah, so I'm American, and I grew up in the US for the most part. At least I went to middle school and high school in the US. And the typical language to study, unless you're right next to Canada, for example, is Spanish. So I started with Spanish, and I need things to move fast in my life. And my Spanish teacher was not moving things for me. I was just not inspired at all. And so I just started a French class. The teacher was amazing, and kind of the rest is history. I really enjoyed it. It opened a lot of doors for me. And I realized how much learning French was a super, super positive thing for me. And I wanted that to be I wanted this language learning to be super positive for other people. Is the long story short.
And with your Spanish, you said that obviously you kind of switched from Spanish to French. Do you think it was just because of the teacher maybe not motivating you with Spanish, or was it just, I don't know, that you found the language a little bit trickier, and then when you compared it with French, you fell in love with Francais?
It was really the teacher. I did one Spanish class, so I didn't have enough time even to know if it was difficult or not.
Right, on what mission? I'm out.
Yeah, and even I mean, it would have been the contrary. Actually, it was if it were too easy, I needed to be challenged and inspired and all of that good stuff.
Right. And back then, how did you learn French? Because nowadays, I think there are lots and lots of applications and resources. But like when I was learning Spanish and Italian when I was a little bit younger at university, it was always with books, sometimes some conversation classes, but it was never online on Zoom or Google Meet. What was your language learning experience like learning French?
Mm-hmm. So yes, I started in high school. That's like, how old are people in high school? I don't even 14,
Mhm.
15.
Okay.
I'm not even sure anymore, but I
I
think
mean, it
that's right.
depends. In England, I think it's a little bit different because usually it'll be primary school until you're 11. And then from like 11 to 18 is grammar school or secondary
Right.
school. which is like middle school and high school, like
In high
joint.
school.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm pretty sure high school in the US is 14, 15, because then you finish at 18. It's 4 years. That makes sense. Yes. Sorry, what was the question? I lost the question.
No, it was about how you learned French. Was it with like
Yes.
textbooks or classes or apps or whatever?
Yeah, so I did have this French class. So I took basic French at school, and the thing that was, I would say, different about my French teacher, who I'm still in contact with,
Mhm.
um, is that she really, really encouraged speaking. Um, and so pretty much everyone would speak in every class. And that was very, very helpful. You know, a lot of times, even if you're studying, if you're listening, a lot of times, it's just doing exercises and everyone is silent. But this class was pretty lively. There were games and competitions. And so, yeah, I definitely got inspired. So that was kind of the basis. That's how we learned grammar. So I learned to love grammar through games. And since I had a pretty good grammar baseline, let's say, and I was not having the typical blockages, let's say, that a lot of students have when they're afraid to make mistakes. They're not used to speaking. I didn't have those things. So I really started with a huge level up, and that got me interested and connected in studying on my own. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos in French. I did not understand anything, but I was just happy to like hear some French. And eventually I did start understanding. And really I definitely became the French nerd. So any book for pleasure, it was in French. I would read in French. Any song that I would hear, I would try to translate into French. I would get bored in my math class. I would write stories in French. My agenda was in French. So yes, I did a lot in French, and therefore, by the time I got to college, so university, I was not necessarily fluent, but just about. I could. There was no problem.
Right. And you went basically all in on French. And this kind of started with YouTube. And like, it can be a little bit intimidating at the beginning when you're trying to find like authentic content to learn a language. I find that vlogs are quite good. Some like news platforms can be quite good, but usually they'll use a wide range of vocabulary and you'll get a little bit like lost in the middle. Like in your case, you said that you didn't understand it that much at the beginning, but you started to pick up more and more. Did you consider like giving up or reverting to like content specifically made for language learning?
Uh, no. Which
Like, no,
um,
there's no going back now.
li-
I am French.
like I said, I'm not sure if it was just an extreme passion or if it was I didn't even have in my brain that there would actually be other types of content out there. I was just looking for anything, literally anything that I could hear and listen to in French. And like I said, if I didn't understand anything, I was still super happy. And I would, so vlogs was the main thing that I would listen to. I feel like YouTube has changed. See, this was 15 plus years ago. That
Early days
that
of
sounds
YouTube.
the older days of YouTube. Um, and Yeah, but I mean, now I would definitely not give that kind of advice to people because that sounds really overwhelming to just go in there. I would say find a subject that you really, really enjoy. Essentially, the most important thing is to have it be a positive thing and have it to be fun. And since French equaled fun for me in any case, it was actually pretty easy. but most of the time, you need to find the link to make it fun and interesting and accessible.
So nowadays, your advice to anyone would be to immerse yourself in English, for example, in this case, doing something that you enjoy already in your mother tongue, right?
Yeah, so if you like cooking, then especially since cooking is something that you can do regularly, start looking up recipes in English, start following some videos in YouTube. Um, it'll give you the kind of vocabulary that is interesting to you and that you can apply directly and regularly. It depends on your interests. My partner is French, and we do not do we do not. I've never really taught him English because that's not the relationship that would uh, that would have been helpful for us. Essentially, we tried, but no. But he's learned on his own through some advice of mine every now and then, and he's a musician, so he improved his listening skills majorly by just being exposed more and more to YouTubers, YouTube musicians using the content that he already really likes and is wanting to consume, and then just having that be in English instead of in French, for example.
Right. It sounds cool. And on that note, a nice little app recommendation, a free one that if anybody's interested, you could check out Lingo Clip, which was formerly known as Lyrics Training. And I'll sometimes from time to time use it to study a little bit of French as well, because I'll be curious about what the lyrics mean. And basically you can download the application, select a song or an artist, and then you have a YouTube video that will appear on your phone inside the application. And then you can fill in the gaps. You can press down if there's a word that you don't know. So it's really useful. And the free version, I think, allows you to listen to 3 songs per day, which for me is already more than enough. So yeah, Lingo Clip, if anyone is curious, check it out. And you can use it for English, French, Spanish, basically any language. So yeah, it's awesome. Sponsorship, let me know, Lingo Clip.
Very nice.
Now, returning to you when you were about to go to college, you said, to university, was it to study languages or what?
It was to study. In any case, I wasn't sure 100% what my focus was going to be in the beginning, but I did end up having a major in French. I got a major in international studies and French at that time. Economics, anthropology. I'm interested in too many things, so I did kind of the most interdepartmental choice that I could find, and yeah, it was pretty easy for me to continue with the French classes and get that on my diploma. So I continued with that. Yes.
It's interesting because at least in the United Kingdom, usually you have to be more specific before you go to university. And in my case, I had to make up my mind between doing like physiotherapy because I like sports and I like the body and stuff like that, or doing languages. And because I liked Spanish and spoke a little bit of Spanish at the time, I was thinking like, well, I can't just do Spanish. That's, maybe a waste of money going to university just to do that. But in the end, I did Spanish, Italian, and in my final year, a little bit of Portuguese. But in England, you have to choose this before you sign up and go to university. It seems like in the US, you go to uni and then you figure out what you want to study.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the best obviously is to have a general idea. You need to choose your classes, and it's expensive in the UK, but it's very
More
expensive
expensive, yeah.
in the US to go to school. So definitely there's a lot of pressure to have things figured out for sure, but you don't have to, and it does depend on the school. But in the majority of the cases, from what I'm aware, it's the end of your second year that you have to you are that you absolutely have to lock it in. So I was pretty locked in from the beginning, it turns out, but yep, a lot of people dabble and have an interdisciplinary approach. For example, I mean, I took a statistics class, I took an environmental science class, I took a couple art classes, and that was a part of my general education that I believe for us it was required actually to dabble in other things because it's a way of learning too. You can make lots of connections.
It sounds interesting. Like maybe I would have liked to have dabbled in lots of different subjects whilst I was at uni. To be honest, when I was at uni, my main focus wasn't really on learning. Now it's just like, hey, let's go out, let's do something. I'm independent. I've left my mum and dad. See you. But now, if I'd have gone back in time, maybe things would have been different. And it's interesting to hear how this changes in different countries. So as I said, in the UK, you have to choose before you go to university. And in the US, you can kind of dabble or try out different things whilst you're there before you lock it in and then make your final decision. Cool. Now, whilst you were at uni, was the plan always to move over to France in the future?
Definitely not. It was not in the plan. Nothing. I enjoy planning, but things don't necessarily go according to the plan. I like the concept, but the follow through. The follow through is more fluid. Yeah, no, I was actually also interested in physical therapy and science quite a bit at one point. But anyway, not to go off on a
I mean, feel
tangent. I
free
just
to go
saw
off on a tangent if you want to. I don't mind.
I saw a connection. Yeah, so it wasn't the plan. I did in my third year of uni. I studied abroad. So the original plan for the studying abroad was 5 months. Towards the fourth month, I really wanted to stay longer. I was not ready to go back to the US, and I was it was very, very stimulating for me to be in a different culture. I was learning a lot about myself. More about myself than even the language. It was for me. So I wanted to stay longer. I ended up staying longer. And yeah, that was my third year, and then fourth year of uni back in school to finish my different programs. And after, especially after having had that year abroad, but also because of a thing that I did not mention earlier, I mostly grew up in the U.S., but I also a little bit grew up in Saudi Arabia. Until I was 11. Both my parents are American, but I went to a British international school in Saudi Arabia, and so I've always had a kind of different perspective of the U.S. It took me a while to feel American. So all that mixed together to say, I was not ready to build roots in the U.S. I just for my personal itchiness, needing to move, but also because I was very aware that the U.S. doesn't have the same social security system that a lot of different countries have. I was not going to be able to have the vacation that I maybe would have had elsewhere. I was not ready to be an adult yet in the US, knowing with my comprehension of what that meant. So I took an opportunity to move to France directly after uni and was able to get a visa, get the visas renewed, and build Peasy.
And the rest is history, right?
Exactly.
So, was it when you first moved to France that you set up Peasy Anglais? Because many people, when they're moving around, kind of looking for their place in the world, uh, teaching English is a natural thing to do as native English speakers, because then it's always something that is in demand. So then that was my case, at least, when I moved to Seville like 10 years ago. The obvious thing to do was either to become an English teacher or work in like an English or Irish pub. And then I thought like, okay, maybe I don't want to be surrounded by alcohol all the time. So it's better to be a language teacher because I already spoke Spanish. So the two kind of went together quite like naturally. Like in your case, was it always, I'm going there, I'm teaching English? And did you already know that you were going to set up your own company like upon arrival?
Not at all. I did not know. And yes, I didn't set things up right away. Things really did evolve. So I did come here to be an English teacher. Um, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to be an English teacher in the first place. In my experience, teachers are amazing, but they don't get the respect in society that they deserve. So I was battling with that with myself. I really, really enjoy learning, so teaching could be a great thing. And it seems like this was my thought process at the time, and it seems like I'm relatively good at this. So yeah, I started in some roles, teaching high school, teaching middle school, teaching what is it? Kindergarten.
Yeah.
So 3 to 6 year olds, and doing private lessons also at uni. So I was teaching English at all of these different levels, but I didn't like the constraints that I had as an English teacher. There were the personal constraints where I was working a crap ton of hours and I had vacation, but I didn't have enough money to use my vacation at all. So what I ended up doing because of my Americanness was working during my whole vacation so that maybe next vacation I can have a little bit more money. And it was an unhealthy cycle personally. And even in terms of my own fulfillment and helping the students, it was I didn't feel fulfilled because I saw that there was so much potential. Like, teaching in a classroom, you see the kids or the I'm going to use the word kids, even if it's some
Teenagers, adults even.
adults sometimes. uh, yeah, you see the kids once or twice a week, and you see them for like an hour and an hour and a half. It's really hard to get them in the right mode to actually make mistakes and speak and do what you need to do in order to learn and love a language. And yeah, there were things where I saw that the students could, if they had a different learning environment, they could go so much further, and I wanted to bring that to them. And so I started just naturally for my private individual students, creating little programs, and then COVID happened, and I had these programs that I had created, and I was like, wait a second, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to create programs, and I want to have students be able to learn a little bit every day in a fun way, not be constrained to a classroom where you have grades and you get punished for making mistakes. And so yeah, COVID, that's when I created Peasy.
Okay, perfect. I mean, it's unusual and like interesting that many people, when the pandemic happened, it was the moment to like reassess everything and take a little bit of time for yourself because we couldn't really do much else. And then a lot of people did decide to kind of take the plunge and actually go for it and launch their own companies or start posting stuff online. Like I kind of wish I had done at that moment, because it was when everybody was glued to their screens all the time. It was the perfect moment to be creating content, because people just had so much free time where they couldn't really go out, socialize, or do anything. So that being said, did the content kind of blow up and take off when you first started posting, or did it take a while to build up a little bit more momentum?
It definitely took some time to build momentum, in part because actually I immediately moved all of my teaching online in any case. So I didn't have the typical break of not working. I did all my same hours just online, and I wanted to change things. So I started a website, started an Instagram account, started creating courses. So I was on overdrive. I was working full-time teaching and full-time content and course creation. So that restraint meant that it took a while to get things started. Um, what was helpful is that I, pretty early on in the process, met someone who became my partner in crime for Peasy, actually. So my business partner. And so I only really realistically had a couple of months when I was alone on the content creation. But yes, it did take a while because I just there were multiple things that were happening. I was a full-time teacher. I was now a full-time content creator, and it just turns out that the other thing that changed for me after the pandemic, or during the pandemic, was I started a master's program at the same time. So I really overdid things.
You really love studying. You're just such a geek, aren't you? It's like, well, I've already got my content, I've already got the classes, but no, I think I can make time for something else. Let's go and do a master's. Why not? What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, it was a master's in educational technology. So
Okay,
it was
the
in
wings
this new
related.
thing.
Yeah.
But yes, that was a lot to take on for sure. And
Sounds
I
like
couldn't just decide to stop my full-time teaching, because that was the only thing that was bringing in money for the first few years at all. And I in the first year already had um, teachers to pay, and a visa to keep. So I had to keep up that really, really high level pace for quite some time until the money from Peasy started coming in from the courses, and I could let go, like you have done more recently, let go of my full-time other jobs.
I know. It sounds interesting. A lot of people usually, like, there's a lot of nerves that you have to overcome, and a lot of feelings of maybe not being prepared or not being good enough. I know I've had these kind of feelings before where I'm like, "Oh, is it worth the risk? Will I be able to make enough money? Am I just being a little bit, I don't know, hysterical?" But I think at the end of the day, a nice way to think is just like, what's the worst that could happen? And I think it's much more likely that people regret not doing something than they regret doing something, which is why I was telling you that recently I decided to kind of quit my main job and like leave that like safety net of knowing that I've got this amount of money every single month, because I was thinking about my own goals and what I want to achieve and how I picture my own routine and schedule and life. And I just value being in control of my time and not having someone kind of telling me what to do. And if it's someone telling me what to do, I prefer it be like my customers, clients, and students telling me what to do rather than a boss telling me what to do. So yeah, that's kind of where I am at the moment.
That's wonderful. Yeah, congrats for taking the plunge.
It's done. What's done is done, you know? Now, tell me about Peasy nowadays in 2025. Like, where are you at, like, kind of 5 years on from the birth of the company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Peasy is a wonderful place, and we do really cool things. So as I mentioned, I'm a co-founder. I met a the person who became the other co-founder, and so we things were slow in the beginning, but now, now I mean we have different teams. We have a team of teachers. We have a team of customer support. We have a team of marketing and content creation. We have a team of um, advisors for anyone who might want to become a student. What type of course would they want? We have tech team. So it's yep, my role has become quite a bit of a managerial. Well, I mean, I'm a CEO essentially instead of a content creator. That's how my role has evolved. Uh, and and yeah, it's been pretty crazy.
And with this, a bit of a follow-up question, because your face is the face of the company while you are also managing the company at the same time. Has it ever crossed your mind to start to diversify the people who are creating content and take a little bit of a step back from that?
Absolutely. It's it's something that we're a little bit afraid to do because people get really attached to an image. But absolutely, it's what essentially we need to start reflecting who we are with our image now, because right now, we have all of the pre-student content, the content on social media, and then once you become a student, then you see this whole beautiful world of all of the support and all of the teachers, and that is going to be normally more and more reflected on our content. So we're doing some tests at the moment. We're going to see. But that's absolutely the idea, that we have more and more of this image of a school and of a school than just little Alex, the content creator. Because I actually haven't really realistically been an English teacher for 4 or 5 years now. I've really been um, a course developer and a team manager more than anything for the past few years.
Uh, And do you miss teaching the classes?
Uh, no, that that's why we need to align my image a lot more to the reality. People are not necessarily going to like to hear that my that well, I mean, it also depends on what is the definition of teaching. I do continue to have a regular role with students where I do coaching sessions. I love to see students unblock and unlock their powers due to some techniques. I mean, I still absolutely love learning, and so I love passing that learning to other people. So whether, I'm always going to be teaching and mentoring in a certain sense, whether it's directly to the students, to my teammates, or my colleagues, or yeah. But the really regular the kind of grind, let's say, of content creation, um, it's not something that I ever did because I wanted to do that. My goal has always been create courses to help more people, but to get those people, you need to have an image and a presence online. So it's been this a little bit of a balance, a battle and a balance to find, let's say.
No, for sure. Like in my last company at Teachify, like the name Teachify has nothing to do with Lewis or with Alex or with the name of the teacher. And I always found that it was difficult to build more of market impact and reach more people if you were coming from the image of a company rather than a person. I guess nowadays, like the importance of like a personal brand is a really real thing. And at the moment, my aims are just to be a solopreneur and just be like a one-man band of doing all of my own things, because I kind of got a little bit sick of managing a team and it was a little bit demotivating for me. But I know that when you compare different creators and English teachers, there are, of course, some people who will use their name in the brand, and then that brand will always be a part of you. And you can't really sell it on as like a school or an academy later. However, if you use another name like Peasy Anglais, for example, then the possibilities for further growth are much bigger. And that's a nice segue, let's say, into my next question, because Peasy, I imagine, comes from easy peasy. So it's very easy. It's a piece of cake. And the second part is Anglais, English. So is there any remote chance of there being a Peasy English or Peasy Inglese or Peasy English?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a very existential question that we are asking ourselves for sure. I mean, it's definitely a possibility in that what makes us different is it's not just about French speakers learning English. You know, that's who we are now and how we've started. But actually, these same struggles that language learners have, these struggles of being afraid to make mistakes, not being sure how to study grammar, not being sure how to understand native speakers. All of these struggles, they're common to languages, and even further than languages, there are a lot of struggles that are common to learning in general. Me as someone who just loves learning in general and how to learn efficiently, absolutely, we could. There's a lot of potential.
Like, who knows, anything could happen in the next few years. Let's see. Now, let's finish off with some light, random questions. So I'm going to focus them related to French and France. But the first one is, what is your favorite French food or dish? If you had to pick one, of course.
Yes, croziflette right away.
What is this?
So I'm not even sure all French people know what this is. So don't feel bad. There is, so I'm in Haute-Savoie, which is a region in the east of France, a little bit south, but mostly east of France. And the big thing here is cheese and potatoes. It's mountains, so you need hearty food. So there's a type of pasta, let's say, that is crozet, and there's also a dish called tartiflette, which is potatoes and I believe it's a reblochon. Yeah, a very saucy, gooey cheese that you put in the oven. And you put those two together, the crozet and the tartiflette, and it's croziflette, and it's yummy.
I mean, I know tartiflette because it's one of these common dishes that are served at like Christmas markets, I believe. And then you
Yeah.
can see that they've got like a huge pan and they've got all the potatoes, all the butter, all of the cheese. Really, really healthy, of course. But it's just like, a hug. When you eat it, it's just comfort food. And now moving on to your favorite city in France, city or town. I don't know if it's where you're living at the moment, but yeah, what would you say is your favorite town or city in France?
That's a super hard one.
You can be
Even in the
diplomatic if you want to. You can say, well, on the one hand,
yeah, I mean, I do really enjoy where I live. I live in Annecy. It's the apartment that I'm in. It's it's a 10-minute bike ride to the lake, 10-minute bike ride to the center of the city. Go a little bit of a different direction. On one side of the lake, 15 minutes, you're at the base of one mountain. 15 minutes bike ride in another direction, you're at the base of another mountain. It's not bad.
mean, it sounds pretty good. And I think I've come across some photos of Annecy before. I've never been personally, but the lake is like really, really like bright blue. And obviously you can see like snow-capped mountains at the same time. And I believe you got like some kind of streams like running through the town, and it looks
Mhm.
like a fairy tale.
The canals, yeah, it's also called the Venice of the Alps sometimes.
It sounds good. Now, final question. What would you say is your favorite French film or series?
Oh dear.
If you have any
This is the
recommendations,
one.
I'm always eager for French content, even though I usually can't find the time to actually study French because I can get by in French, but I'm not that motivated. So I need to find something that'll hook me. That I'll really want to think that, I finished my classes and I'm going to turn on blah, blah, blah.
Hmm. I'm not sure I can help you. I have, um, this is usually the question that I ask other people, which is not good because I've been here for a while. Um, the classics. The most classic that comes to mind is Le Dîner des Cons. There's a lot of play on words there. Um, but a lot of the classics are either pretty difficult to understand. There's like Les Visiteurs, which is really difficult to understand because the whole concept is you have like medieval folk who come into the future, who come into the present, and so but their French is still medieval French, and like kind of the classic films, classic French films, cult films. The rhythm is super super speedy, and that's just part of the humor. Really really fast, no change of expression to give you a hint that that was a joke. You just have to follow uh really well. Um, so it's pretty tricky. I would go for something more recent to follow along.
Well, anybody watching this, please let me know in the comments if you're French or familiar with French series and films. Give me your recommendations. I'd be eager to find out because I've tried a few different French series before. I've never got that into them, so it still felt a little bit like I was studying more than just like kicking back, relaxing, and immersing myself in the language. So if you can lend me a hand and do me a favor and let me know some cool series or films, then I would be eternally grateful.
I did. You mentioned able to kick back and follow. I did enjoy. I think it's called 10%. It is about. Actually, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to explain, but I believe it's called
It rings a
10%. You
bell.
can look it up.
Okay. Let's see. I watched which was about a kind of wealthy Parisian family that have an estate agency and they go around different places. It's on Netflix and they show these mansions to really, really rich people around the world. And it's called L'Agence, which is like a family. And yeah, basically they just give you an insight into their lives as estate agents and show these like incredible houses that you'll always dream about owning and probably never ever have. So that was gripping. I was hooked. Perfect. Well, anyway, on
Nice.
that note, we can call it a day there and finish off. But thank you everybody for watching. And Alex, thank you so much for joining and telling us about your story back from university French to easy, easy peasy, peasy anglais. And who knows what will happen in the future.
Exactly. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So thank you everybody and see you in the next video. Bye bye.